Of course, that was the year 2016 that she started dating Prince Harry. 10 years on, her critics pointed out that she is currently selling her own scented candle set for more than double the $100 price tag she dismissed as obnoxious. Yes, it's the $256 signature scent collection. But all of this is desperate, isn't it?
I received a Meghan Markle Wickless candle, and so I have to ask, what am I supposed to light? What am I going to light because I have no wick? Okay, kind of like Prince Harry these days, the wick is missing. I have no wick, I'm wickless, and she's witless.
Seriously, look, it comes out just like that, and literally no wick.
On May 28th, 3 little words hit the brand's page, arriving tomorrow. And just like that, the internet lost its mind over a box of matches, actual matches. The newest drop from Meghan's lifestyle label, As Ever. Here's where it gets interesting. Those matches exist specifically to light her candles. The same candles that, by more than one account, showed up with absolutely no wick in them. You genuinely cannot make this up. The brand called them limited edition matches, as if people were lining up around the block for something you can grab at any corner shop for pocket change. And you could only get them free tucked inside a candle bundle. The biggest bundle, the 4-candle signature scent collection, runs at $256, around £190 for 4 candles and the matches to light them. Then there's the photo they actually chose to promote it with. Not a slip-up, not an accident, a whole team signed off on this. A candle burned straight down the middle into a sad little tunnel, with one spent, blackened match sitting on top of a fresh box. A used match. On a box of unused matches, it's like selling gloves for a coat that showed up with no sleeves. The comments split straight down the middle.
Plus, a limited edition matchbox you can only get by buying the bundle. £190 in the UK, $256 in the US. The candles are tunneling, so the wax burns down the center of the candle instead of across the whole surface, which is what happens when you use cheap paraffin instead of soy or beeswax. One critic on the record in the British press put it plainly: that's because she's using very cheap and toxic paraffin wax. Cheap and toxic.
Imagine Meghan Markle. She comes running downstairs in the Montecito mansion in her jean booty shorts, and she goes, Harry, I've got a brilliant idea how we're gonna get rich. I'm going to sell matches. I am going to sell matchsticks. And then she runs off through the house, and Harry sits there and he goes, I must be really bloody high. Or did my wife just tell me she's selling matchsticks? Matchsticks? Or was it fish sticks? I don't know. So then Prince Harry, he goes over to the phone. Prince Harry, he picks up the phone. Bling, bling, bling. William, I've made a terrible mistake, my brother. She is selling matches. I'm coming home.
Half the room asked if the whole thing was a joke. The other half went straight for the throat. Since the candles keep showing up without wicks, they said, the As Ever matches must come with the tips only, a complete set at last. Either you laugh, or you sit quietly and mourn the £190. So here we are. A woman who walked away from a palace, landed Netflix, Spotify, a book deal, a documentary, and the undivided attention of the entire world, and she is now selling matches. Not even reliable matches. Matches for candles you may not even be able to light. And before we move on, the candle she named after her own wedding day hides a detail that makes this whole launch look even messier than it already does. We'll get there. Last November, a buyer filmed himself opening one of the $64 candles, and what he found stopped him cold. He turned the glass over, tilted it toward the light, and there was nothing there. No wick. Not even a tiny white thread waiting for a flame. A luxury candle, bought and paid for in full, with the one thing that makes it a candle completely missing. Oh my God, he said. Now, before anyone says one bad candle means nothing, it wasn't just one. A second well-known critic received his candle the exact same way, Wickless. To be fair, his came through a third-party seller who insisted it had a wick when it left them, so he set that aside and put no weight on it.
Are you serious?
Is that the thing?
There's no wick. I've had 2 people tell me that there was no wick when they ordered a candle.
There's literally no wick.
Are you kidding?
I have an empty Wickless. How do I light it? I literally just noticed that. I just pulled it out. There is a hole in my Meghan Markle candle.
The wax has been described publicly as cheap and toxic. The candles are also tunneling, which means the wax burns straight down the middle like a sad little whale or Harry's soul, instead of melting evenly across the top. So anyone who has ever bought a $15 candle from Target knows that's the sign of a bad pour.
But the problem people kept circling back to was something else entirely, the tunneling. That's the ring of wax that sinks straight down the middle of the glass, leaving a deep hollow where the flame should sit. Anyone who's ever poured a candle knows exactly what causes it. Either the wick is too thin for the jar, or the wax blend is simply off. In plain terms, it's the calling card of a cheap pour dressed up in heavy glass and a serious-looking font. Some online went further, claiming the wax itself looked low quality, even questionable. We'll leave that alone. The brand has never published an ingredient list, so it stays firmly in the unproven pile. But the mood online? You could have cut it with a knife. People started calling her the Temu Duchess. The label that stuck to the whole operation was Scam Jam. And before anyone reaches for a lawyer, that's purely a verdict on the marketing, not a legal claim. It's simply what people type when they feel played. Here's the part that really stings, though. The brand does not take returns. Not one. You hand over your £190, and if what shows up at your door can't be lit, that's your problem now, not theirs. No refund, no swap. A candle that might not function as a candle, with a hard no waiting for you if it doesn't. And now, on top of all of it, they want to sell you the matches. To understand the matches, you have to go back to the jam, because none of this started this week.
Meghan over the weekend was promoting her new jams. Apparently everyone in her family likes a different jam. Are you ready to hear about it?
Everyone in my family has a different favorite. My husband loves the raspberry, Lily loves the strawberry. Arch loves both, and I like the mango.
Aww, Arch loves both. I thought I had a story to tell you, but then I kind of changed my mind because I realized he likes them both. Anyway, apparently she's lying about this and everything else because it's all just to sell products. And again, she's in her fake kitchen as she's selling this stuff. She must have taped this a while back when she was taping her Netflix show, which is no longer there.
Now, what I find so ridiculous about this woman was British royalty. Okay, British royalty, and now she's selling little pieces of wood that you use to light candles. Think about it. She is selling little tiny pieces of wood and trying to turn a buck, trying to make a quick profit. I mean, the Kardashians wouldn't even sell matches.
The wheels have been wobbling since the very first product rolled out of Montecito. The whole thing launched under a completely different name, American Riviera Orchard. Quite the mouthful. The United States Trademark Office quietly agreed, knocking the name back on the grounds that it was little more than a description of a place you could point to on a map. A well-known fruit and gift company also raised an eyebrow, their own long-standing name sitting a little too close for comfort. The grand lifestyle empire tripped at the very first hurdle. So it was back to the drawing board. Out went American Riviera Orchard. In came as ever cleaner, vaguer, harder to argue with, and honestly, harder to remember. Then came the first big push, jam. Strawberry jam, to be precise, sent out in cute little jars, around 50 of them, to a carefully selected list of famous friends and useful names. The plan was obvious. A wave of glossy posts, celebrities cradling the jar, followers rushing to buy, a tasteful little stampede. What actually arrived was the sound of crickets. A great many of those jars, by all accounts, were never seen again. Never photographed, never posted, never so much as mentioned by the famous friends who received them. You can almost picture those jars quietly migrating to the back of celebrity fridges, somewhere behind the mustard and a forgotten jar of capers.
I was shocked, Dan. Like, when I first initially saw this post on X about it, I was like, no, there's just no way, because there's so much misinformation out there about Harry and Meghan in some ways. But then I was actually putting the numbers in, and you're getting stock counts. And I'm like, you should never, ever see that on a website. And in case, unless they have like 1 or 2 left, they will let you know that. But to have potentially 37,000 fruit spreads sitting out there is astronomically bad.
She clearly has no one advising her career. All of her publicists, all of her communications people, they've probably flown the coop. And she's left. Look at these videos. She's left here filming sultry jam advertisements. I've never seen someone try harder to make jam and marmalade look sexy and have sex appeal, okay? But she has the sex appeal of a lint roller, of a bar of soap.
The launch meant to set the internet on fire vanished without a trace, and that's the moment the internet coined its nickname, Scam Jam. Harsh? Sure. But the jam had already set the tone, a brand built not on something people actually needed, but on the firm belief that the name on the label would carry the whole thing. That the famous friends would do the selling. That wanting badly enough to be a lifestyle mogul was basically the same as being one. That same assumption runs underneath the candles. And now underneath the matches. The quiet belief that a famous name on a cardboard box can turn 90 pence worth of matches into something luxury people will line up for. Honestly, the sheer confidence of it is almost something to admire. Almost. So by the time we land on a wickless candle and a box of branded matches, none of this is surprising. This is just the same pattern wearing a new outfit. Now the detail I promised. This one's good. But first, rewind 10 years, a conference stage in Atlanta. A younger Meghan, lifestyle blog in hand, a point to prove, and a microphone. There are no $100 candles on my site, she told that room. That's so obnoxious. Her whole pitch back then was the aspirational girl next door, things you could want and could actually have. Nothing flashy, nothing in her own word, obnoxious. Attainable was the entire idea, and it was a clever one, because it was the precise opposite of everything people had come to resent about celebrity products. No gatekeeping, no ridiculous prices. Just nice things within reach of an ordinary person sitting at their kitchen table.
She needs to put herself out there. She's not even charging. And not because it's beneath her, it's because nobody wanted her. Nobody wanted to pay her. She's not worth anything for anybody. In fact, she is a liability because there's a lot of backlash.
Royals don't really worry about money in a day-to-day manner in the same way that we do, because fundamentally their lives are paid for. They don't have to worry about paying the mortgage. They don't have to worry about paying the rent. They don't need to worry about having enough money on the credit card to top up the car with petrol. That is the privilege that comes with being a member of the monarchy, but as a result, they give up their life in return for public good. So Harry knows nothing about money. And Meghan has put him, Brittany, on this sort of emotional roller coaster, which is like, one moment she's saying, no, it hasn't worked. The commercial stuff hasn't worked, so don't worry. You go back to the charity stuff. And then that hasn't worked. And so now she's putting the pressure on again. I mean, he doesn't understand money, Brittany. He has never understood money. She should have known that.
She knew exactly what she was selling and exactly who she was selling it to. So hold that word, obnoxious. Now hold it right up against today's price tag, $256 for the set. More than double the figure she once stood on a stage and called offensive. The girl next door has moved house. The new place has a gate, a guard, and a driveway you could land a small plane on. And here it is, the detail I promised. One of those candles is called No 519. The 19th of May, her wedding day. The marketing copy sells it as warm sunshine and blue skies, the joy and ease of the morning she married Harry. That whole feeling, bottled up so you can burn it at home for $64. Lovely. There's just one small snag. The behind-the-scenes accounts from that very week tell a rather different story about how the day actually smelled. The word that went around at the time was musty. The chapel, reportedly, smelled stale to her 500 years of history, and she found it a bit off. She is said to have wanted staff walking the aisles with atomizers, little spritzer guns spraying scent through St. George's Chapel before the guests arrived. Staff, the story goes, found the idea both unnecessary and a touch inappropriate for a building of that age and standing. In fairness, perfumer Diptyque later confirmed it had scented the wedding, so the chapel wasn't left entirely to itself. But the original story stands, and what a story it is. So sit with the shape of this for a second. The wedding day candle sold to you on the Joy of the Scent of the Day commemorates a chapel she reportedly wanted deodorized before she would even walk into it. The woman who couldn't stand the smell of the place now bottles that smell and sells it back to you. For $64 a pop, the nerve of it, honestly. Now, here's where patience really runs out with this whole operation.
MeghanMarkle.com. I don't want this to just be me. I want this to be a community much greater than that. So beyond bringing on writers or other people who want to share great content and who understand the voice of the site, which is like talking to a girlfriend and conversational and inspiring, I've always sort of crafted it like aspirational girl next door. Like, you can aspire for it, but you could totally attain it too. There are no $100 candles on my site. That's so obnoxious. I just want things that you can have. And so I want people who really understand that ethos and enjoy sort of the fun and frivolity of it all.
Oh yes, you're finally realizing what we think about you, Meghan. Totally obnoxious.
But here it is, the new scented candle, which we have also on her website. $5.19 because, it's the day they got married, May 19th. Our signature scent, modern and elegant. Love at first light. I see what she did there. Number $5.19 is the feeling of warm sunshine and blue skies surrounded by love and laughter. This signature candle is inspired by the ease and joy of a day that holds Meghan's most cherished memories, her wedding day. May 19th, bright and refreshing, with quietly grounding notes of Moroccan mint, white tea leaves, and a back note of woodsy cardamom. Number 519 fills the room with a soothing, welcoming fragrance that remains our founder's tried and true favorite, housed in a beautiful ceramic vessel. A vessel.
This is not a streak of bad luck. It's a pattern, and the most damning part is who keeps sitting at the center of it. Take the money. Netflix, the big partner, the one that signed them in a blaze of headlines back in 2020, reportedly footed the bill for the manufacturing of these very products. The shipping, the branding, Netflix quietly underwrote the lot. Then last summer, the big overall deal quietly shrank down to a first-look arrangement, which in plain English is a polite little shuffle toward the exit. Then this past March, Netflix walked away from the candle business altogether. Here's the detail that tells you everything. They were reportedly left handing out unsold stock teas, baking mixes directly to their own staff because nobody on the outside was buying it. There was even talk of a website glitch that briefly exposed just how much product was sitting unsold in a warehouse. And yet we're told, with a perfectly straight face, that the candles sell out in minutes. So explain this slowly. If a brand's products truly vanish in minutes, why bundle free matches onto candles that are already sitting there for sale? No discount, no returns. When something is genuinely flying off the shelf, you don't staple a freebie to it and quietly hope it moves. That's not the behavior of a label struggling to keep up with demand. That's the behavior of a cupboard that desperately needs clearing, dressed up in soft focus and a press release. You don't run a clearance special on something that's actually selling out. Those two things simply cannot exist in the same sentence. A brand this inconsistent doesn't need outside interference. It hands you the bucket and points at the hole itself because every single misstep here came from inside the house. The wickless candle, the tunneling wax, a spent match sitting on a flammable box in a photo the team chose to publish, and a price tag she once stood on a stage and called obnoxious. Nobody did this to her. She did it to herself, perched on a kitchen counter in crisp white linen.
She's selling this candle on the website. She's peddling a massive lie at the center of her latest as ever launch, unveiling a $64 scented candle inspired by her wedding to Prince Harry. Even though she always complained, apparently reports say, she complained about the St. George Chapels smelling musty ahead of the ceremony. Apparently, she wanted to spray air freshener all around venue before the guests arrived. So is this a candle that just reminds reminds her of the scent of that air freshener or of the actual musty St. George Chapel.
So actually what this means is that these products, and by the way, this candle, $64 from the Was Never website, $77.94 because we ordered it from eBay.
Cameras rolling, paid team nodding along, and that, honestly, is the part that should bother you most. This is not some lost soul who stumbled into the deep end by accident. This is a former television professional with staff, with money, with every advantage a person could ask for, who keeps serving up amateur moves and calling it luxury. Which brings us neatly to her own words. In her most recent sit-down for Harper's Bazaar, Meghan offered the room this little gem. The moment that you start making all of your personal decisions based on external judgment, she said, then you lose your authenticity. Read that again, slowly, with a wickless candle resting in your hand. Because this is a brand engineered from top to bottom for external judgment. Being looked at is the entire point of it. The staged kitchens, the linen, the color of money, a candle named for a wedding, others for birthdays, another for the house. Every product is a little flag planted in the ground to be photographed and admired by strangers. The whole enterprise lives or dies on what other people think of it, and the woman behind it is out here gently lecturing the rest of us about not living for outside approval. The sheer audacity of it, and it gets so much richer. This is the same interview where it came out that staff are said to announce her as the Duchess of Sussex before she walks into a room, not at a formal state event, not at a royal engagement, before she walks into her own space announced by title, like a fanfare before a queen enters her own kitchen. So we're meant to embrace authenticity and rise above judgment, while simultaneously needing a herald to signal our arrival through a doorway. It's a pattern that keeps showing up, wearing different clothes each time. In an earlier Bloomberg sit-down, she opened up about her time as a working royal, explaining that wearing nude tights had felt, in her own chosen word, inauthentic. The tights, standard issue hosiery?
Netflix tied a lot of the money that they gave Harry and Meghan into the As Ever stock. Netflix said, okay, we're going to give you the money that's part of this lump deal, but a good chunk of it is going to go into developing your inventory. Well, Netflix did that. Now Meghan's stuck with the inventory that can't move, which means all their money that they were supposed to get for Netflix, or at least a good chunk of it, is tied up in her terrible products. And she is not good at marketing. She is not good at figuring out what actual consumers want. And so she's constantly stuck in this endless loop of failure, and she has no one to blame here but herself. At this point, I mean, As Ever looks like it's pretty much dead already.
We're also sick of your desperate bids to make money, including this latest email pleading for everyone to continue to buy Was Never products thanks to a 20% discount. This is not a life of service, Meghan. This is not changing the world. You're never gonna fly in this industry, so maybe it is about time that you wake up.
That was apparently the detail that gnawed at her sense of self. The 8-figure streaming deal? Perfectly comfortable. The documentary that walked cameras through every corner of her private life for the world to consume? No authenticity concerns raised there. The carefully curated social media grid, each post approved and timed and filtered before it reaches your screen? Not a flicker of discomfort. But the tights finally crossed the line. You simply could not write it. And then there's the candle range named after her children's birthdays. Not just a product, not just a candle with a pleasant scent and a clean label. A candle tied directly to the birth dates of 2 young children, packaged up, priced, and sold to strangers on the internet. There is something uniquely strange about turning the most personal details of your family's life into a product and then stepping up to a podium to talk about how fiercely you protect your privacy. Those two ideas are having a very loud argument with each other, and nobody on the team seems to have noticed. So here is the contradiction sitting right at the heart of all of it. You can be authentic, or you can sell a $256 candle set that, going by the mounting evidence, may never actually light. You can live free from external judgment, or you can build an entire lifestyle brand whose whole currency is the admiration of strangers. You can guard your personal life, or you can bottle your wedding morning and sell it back to people for $64 a unit. What you cannot do, what nobody has ever successfully pulled off, is all of it at once, without someone eventually clocking the gap between the message and the product. Pulling that off requires a particular kind of confidence, a very specific, unshakable, almost architectural belief in one's own story. And whatever else you might say about Meghan, that quality has never once been missing from the building. Now the matches. Supposedly, the finishing touch. The little luxury detail that completes the collection, ties the whole thing together.
The official launch image for a $256 luxury candle bundle shows a burnt, used match sitting directly on top of a flammable cardboard matchbox. Yeah, not a fresh match, a used one, sitting on a box full of matches. In the promotional photograph they chose to lead with for a luxury premium product. Yeah, the comments on the IB Times UK piece have been running all weekend. The line that has a stock is this: the composition resembles a pothead's coffee table. Wow.
I have no sympathy. Yes, she should give up. She should give up because she sold the world a pup. None of us buy in to what she is selling. And also, she's just really goddamn terrible at it.
Elevates the experience from a simple candle purchase into something that feels considered and intentional. That is the pitch, and it is a decent pitch on paper, a curated bundle, a complete set, the kind of thing a proper lifestyle brand does when it really understands its customer. Except this particular finishing touch is a box of matches, retail value under £1, tucked free into a bundle that already costs $256, marketed as limited edition. Photographed next to a tunneled candle with a burned-out match resting on top of fresh ones, an image so accidentally honest it could pass as the brand's entire autobiography. Here is where the whole thing finally lands, and it lands hard. The matches do not fix the candle. They cannot. No amount of branded packaging, no soft focus photography, no carefully worded press copy changes the fundamental problem sitting at the center of this operation. You cannot sell people the spark and quietly skip the part that is meant to catch. You cannot charge luxury prices and deliver corner shop results. You cannot ask someone to trust your brand and then offer no returns when the product fails to do the one thing it was sold to do. The matches shine a light on every crack in this enterprise, which is, let's be direct about it, considerably more illumination than the candles themselves have ever managed to provide. Cast your mind back over the full timeline, because when you lay it all out in sequence, it tells a very coherent story. A lifestyle brand launches under a name the trademark office rejects on the grounds that it is simply a description of a location. It relaunches under a new name that is clean, vague, and almost impossible to recall. It sends strawberry jam to 50 famous friends, none of whom post about it. It releases candles that arrive without wicks. It photographs those candles tunneling sadly into themselves. It partners with a streaming giant that eventually hands out unsold product to its own employees rather than see it go to waste. It quietly loses that partner. It introduces a no returns policy on items that may not work. And then, as the grand next chapter, it pivots to matches. Matches for the candles without wicks. The wicks that were never there. Every single one of those steps came from inside the operation. No outside interference, no bad luck of the particularly cruel variety.
So Meghan Markle, she is selling basic matchboxes for approximately $222. You do get some of these candles though, so they come in a big candle set behind the candelabra, okay? She's marketing them as a limited edition item, and these are her candles that are inspired by her children. You know, she's using her kids' royal titles to sell these candles.
And we know that what Meghan's doing is not out of love, it's not out of some type of desire to create a community, it is out of financial need. As Harry, Meghan's spare put it, when you have to roll out a full promotional campaign for your newest product, and that product is a box of matches, you've officially reached the bottom of the barrel. Not perfume, not skincare, not fashion, matches.
No malicious third party sabotaging the supply chain in the night, just a series of decisions made by people with resources and staff and time and money and every conceivable advantage that somehow keep arriving at the same destination, a product that does not quite do what it says on the label, wrapped in beautiful photography and sold with absolute conviction. And that is the part that genuinely deserves attention, because this is not a story about candles. Not really. It is a story about the distance between image and reality, And what happens when a brand is built almost entirely on the assumption that the name above the door is enough to paper over every crack below it? The jam did not need to be good jam, the candles did not need to burn properly, the matches do not need to be remarkable matches. The theory, running quietly beneath all of it, is that the label transforms the object. That association with a certain kind of life, a certain kind of woman, a certain aspirational glow, is itself the product being sold. That theory worked for a while, for a great many people in a great many industries, and it is not even a bad theory on paper. There are brands built entirely on feeling, on image, on the life you imagine yourself living when you own the thing. That is not unique to this operation. That is half of what luxury marketing has always been. The difference, the part that separates the ones that last from the ones that become a punchline, is that the product still has to work. The bag still has to hold together. The car still has to start. The candle still has to burn. It works right up until the candle arrives without a wick, right up until the customer films the empty glass and posts it, right up until the spent match photograph goes live and the comments section does the rest of the work entirely for free. The internet did not go looking for problems here. The problems walked straight into the frame and sat down for the photo. Now step back even further, because the most revealing thing about this whole operation is not any single product. It is the response, or rather, the complete absence of one. When the Wickless candle surfaced, there was no public statement, no acknowledgement, no "we are looking into this" or "we are sorry this happened." Nothing. The brand moved forward as though the camera had never rolled.
Meghan handed Harry an ultimatum about money, while the brand she's running is selling tunneling candles at $256 a bundle, and the household is reportedly burning through $3 to $6 million a year. So basically, the Montecito bank accounts are tunneling as well. So the way Shutter's source frames it, Meghan is the engine. She has always been the engine for deceit and, grift and all that stuff. And Harry is the obstacle. And for context, Harry reportedly sits on roughly $20 million from Diana's estate and a bequest from Queen Elizabeth, locked in a trust with a restriction around education and old age. I think that Meghan needs some...
As though the empty glass had never been tilted toward the light. That is a choice, a deliberate, calculated, fully staffed choice. And then came the matches. Not a fix, not a reformulation, not even a quiet ingredient list slipped onto the website to rebuild a little confidence. Matches. The logical response to a candle people cannot light is apparently to sell them something, to light it with as though the customer's problem was never the missing wick, but simply the absence of fire in their immediate vicinity. The audacity of that pivot deserves its own round of applause. The girl next door, who stood on a stage in 2016 and told a room full of people that a $100 candle was obnoxious, now wants $256 of your dollars. She has moved considerably further than next door. The neighborhood has changed entirely. The gates have gone up, and the price of entry has more than doubled since she first told you the door was open to everyone. That 2016 version had a point, and a good one. The current version has a no returns policy. She will throw in the matches for free. She would genuinely prefer you did not ask too many questions about the wick. She would like the whole thing photographed in good light, approved by a team, posted before anyone has had a chance to actually try lighting one, and captioned with something warm about intention and joy and the simple pleasure of a well-scented room. Here is what makes all of this genuinely fascinating rather than simply frustrating. At every single stage, there was an off-ramp. After the jam went quiet, the brand could have paused, listened, recalibrated. After the Wickless candle surfaced, a proper response, transparency, a replacement, even just an acknowledgement would have changed the entire conversation. After the tunneling complaints stacked up, a reformulation would have taken the wind clean out of the criticism. None of those off-ramps were taken. Every single one was driven straight past, windows up, music on. That is not bad luck. That is not an inexperienced team stumbling in the dark. That is a very specific kind of belief. The belief that the story being told is stronger than any evidence to the contrary. That the brand, the name, the image, the soft focus kitchen and the crisp linen and the carefully worded captions are simply more powerful than a comment section full of people holding up empty candle jars.
So then Prince Harry, he goes over to the phone. Prince Harry, he picks up the phone. William, I've made a terrible mistake, my brother. I'm coming home. And then William has to inform him that they've given his room away to Camilla to put her clothes and her tiaras and her heels in there. So then Prince Harry, he packs everything in a bag. Prince Harry throws everything in a bag, and then he goes down the driveway of the Montecito mansion to get in a taxi cab, and he looks back dramatically like they do in the movies. And then he gets in the car and he flies back to London Heathrow. And then when he lands in London, he remembers he left two important things at the mansion, Archie and Lilibet. The end.
It is a bet, and so far it is a bet that keeps losing in public while being placed again quietly in private. Make of that what you will, and most people already have. The Scam Jam nickname did not disappear after the first wave. The Temu Duchess label did not fade with the news cycle. These things have a way of compounding, each new chapter adding weight to everything that came before it. The matches did not land in a vacuum. They landed on top of the jam, the candles, the wicks, the tunneling, the no returns policy, the Netflix exit, and the warehouse full of unsold tea. That is a considerable pile to land on, and the thud was audible. What comes next is genuinely anyone's guess. Brands have recovered from worse, and brands have collapsed under less. The deciding factor, almost every time, is whether the person at the center is willing to actually listen, not perform listening, not gesture toward accountability in a carefully lit interview, but genuinely stop, look at what is in front of them, and change something real. Not the packaging, not the name, not the marketing copy. Something real, at the level of the product, at the level of the customer, at the level of the very basic promise that what you are selling will do what you say it does. Whether that happens here is a question only the next chapter can answer, but the comments section of the internet has a longer memory than most people give it credit for, and it is paying very close attention. The next product launch will not arrive in a clean field. It will arrive carrying every single one of these stories on its back, and the crowd waiting for it will already know the whole timeline by heart. Whether the matches quietly end up at the back of a famous fridge somewhere in Montecito, joining the jam that nobody photographed and the candles that nobody could light, well, that one is still being written. But the pattern writing it has been remarkably consistent from the very first chapter. So now it is your turn, and be completely honest. Would you hand over £190 for this set, matches and all, knowing everything you now know? Is there a version of this story where the brand turns it around, or has the gap between the image and the reality grown too wide to close? Drop it in the comments below. Every single one gets read, and the conversation down there is genuinely worth being part of. If this one delivered, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps these stories reach more people who care about how things really play out behind the polished surface. Share it with someone who needs to see it, because this is exactly the kind of story that travels better with company. Subscribe if you have not already, because there is a lot more coming this week alone. The next one drops Friday, and we are going straight inside the numbers, what the Montecito operation actually costs to keep running every single year, where the money comes from, and whether any of it actually adds up. The figures are something else entirely. See you there.